Nou, buitengemeen goedendag, dames en heren. Hartelijk welkom bij deze extra aflevering van Stills and Barrels. En we hebben een hele bijzondere gast vandaag. We hebben te gast monsieur Cyril Godet. En we gaan het ook in het Engels doen. Dus take it away, Cyril. Very warm welcome to you in the Netherlands. So, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Bon, merci d'abord. Thank you for having me. Bonjour Amsterdam, bonjour la Hollande. I'm very glad to be here because as we all know now, traveling has become a real luxury. And so I'm very glad to be here with you out of La Rochelle for after 18 months of forced locked in. Mm-hmm. So my name is Cyril Godet. I am part of the Godet family who has been making cognac for 460 years, if I'm not mistaken, and I represent in Netherlands the 15th generation. I am one of the three brothers who have taken over from our dear father Jean-Jacques, who is enjoying a great life and a great passion on the sea. Mm-hmm. And as we were talking about before, I do many things because we are a very small, company, 20 people. So I guess one of my main tasks is to look after the commercial side of our operations for Middle East, Europe and America. Mm-hmm. But since we are also a family-owned and run company, I also look after a new project that that we've been working on for many years now to increase our cellaring operation. Mm-hmm. And build a new distillery and plant a new vineyard. And of course, I'm also I have the luxury to be allowed into my eldest brother Jean-Edouard tasting cabinet. So whenever he does a new blend, sometimes he opens the door and asks for a comment and says, guys, so he welcomes myself and Maxime, who are brother number 2 and me, brother number 3. And he says, here is what I've been working on recently, give me your opinion. So as a cognac lover and deeply interested into cognac, we come and we have the chance to sniff. Mm-hmm. So this is more or less what I do. All
right. And what makes Godet so special? What was the difference between other cognac brands?
What makes us special from my point of view, and it's because Godet is truly something that comes from inside. Godet is like a human being, so it has its own character, it has its own mood, it has its own identity. I think from the historical standpoint, Godet has been my family has been doing the same thing for 15 generations. So that's a very long track record. And, before my brother, Jean-Edouard, my father was the master blender. And before him was my grandfather. So 15 generations in a row, transmitting, of course, some certain skills, some certain tricks, some certain secrets, but also transmitting something which goes beyond, which is a link to culture, which is linked to an emotional perspective and perspective on cognac. So that longevity is something that we are very proud of. We are already working on how to transmit that to our own children, the 16th generation. So Godet is also still 100% family owned, and that family ownership gives us a full control on what we do, and the decisions we make very often are made not in the commercial perspective, but in the longevity perspective. And for us, longevity is a two-way street, in the sense that longevity means making sure that what we do remains relevant today, but will be relevant tomorrow. But also longevity means making sure that what we do is in line with what we inherited from the past. So there is that, transmission across the time, which is very important to us. And so it doesn't mean at all that we do better cognacs than others, because I will never say that. But we do a cognac that is extremely true to where we come from, but which is also animated by what is alive and current in our own heart and soul and life. So translated into consumer perspective, there is like a promise of Cognac Godet is a product that is really true, that is really set into a tradition, but also set into, you know, current mood and current envy that we have.
Yeah. And you are one of the oldest cognac houses.
Yeah, so our roots goes back to the middle of the 16th century, and actually Godet, we are initially from Schiedam in the Netherlands, and we came to France and to the city of La Rochelle, where we are still operating from. We came in La Rochelle, so in the middle of the 16th century, initially to buy some salt. So my ancestor Bonaventure was a salt trader, and he was coming to La Rochelle because he could find a good quality salt without paying the tax. So that was the first, I would say, duty-free place for tax.
So there is a Dutch connection.
There is definitely a Dutch connection, 100%. And so when he arrived in La Rochelle, Bonaventure, he discovered the local custom of the people in La Rochelle, and those people were already drinking wine, white wine that had been planted initially by monks. And he, you know, as a visionary or as an adventurous guy, he said, well, this wine, I love to drink it. Maybe my fellow Dutch people in the Netherlands will love it as well. So he started to, you know, buy few barrels of that wine, started to export it to Netherlands, where he was selling his salt. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the quality of the wine was not that great at that time. It was still good enough to be of interest, but the journey would damage the quality of the wine. And so Bonaventure decided to take one of the Dutch alambic with which you guys, I mean, we were producing juniper, dismantled the alambic, brought it back with his ship to La Rochelle, reassembled the alambic and started to burn the wine in order to concentrate the alcohol, get rid of the water, and allow the intrinsic quality, what is really interesting into the wine, which was the alcohol, to be more condensed, so allow to sustain the journey. Yep. His initial thought was to add the water back into the distilled wine when arrived in the Netherlands, but luckily the first customers or the first buyers had the interest to taste the product itself, like raw from the barrel onto the ship, and they loved it, and they said, "Oh, I'm not gonna add water to that. I'm gonna drink it like this, and I'm gonna call it brandewijn, which means burnt wine."
Burnt wine, brandewijn, we call it in Dutch. Yeah.
And so that brandewijn was really the first step into the long transformation that gave birth to what we now know as cognac.
Yep, yep.
And so from those initial days of Dutch trade from La Rochelle to the Netherlands with the brandewijn, the British people came into the trade, smelled there was some good business opportunity, so they came into the region, and we have some of the big names that arrived, Hennessy, Martel, all of those guys, they came from England, and they basically rerouted the trade of brandewijn not to the Netherlands but to England. Yeah. And so they converted the name brandewijn into brandy. Yep. Likewise, they did juniper into gin.
Yep.
So that's the really second, I would say, era of cognac. The first era is Dutch brandewijn. Second era is British brandy.
Brandy, yeah.
And it's only towards the end or middle or end of the 19th century, so 1850, 1870, when we have the phylloxera disease that destroys the vineyard of Aunis, which is the north of the province of Cognac, and the vineyard of Saintonge, which is the south of the vineyard of the province of Cognac. So all of those vineyards are destroyed. we talk about 90% of the vineyard which is completely destroyed, so a new vineyard has to be planted. The new vineyard will thrive on two trends. One is a new grape variety imported from America, which we use as a root to craft Folle Blanche, and we create a new grape variety called Uni Blanc. And we decide to go and plant the new vineyard into areas which are, how to say, the soil is more poor, you know, less nutriments, and the soil which had more, so less nutriments is more into, you know, in the center of what we now call the province Cognac. So from the heart of the region, Cognac, Ségonzac, Jarnac, so Grande Champagne, Petite Champagne, Borderie, the new vineyards emerge. And that new vineyard, we decide in 1906 or 1909 to call it with a French name, and we decide to give it the name Cognac. The reason why we decided
after the city of Cognac.
After the city. And so there are different, how to say, theories on why Cognac was called Cognac and not Jarnac, Ségonzac, or Rochefort, or La Rochelle. And one of those theory is that after Cognac, the river Charente was big enough so that we could use that as a logistic route to go all the way to the port of Rochefort, which is at the very end of the river Charente, where we would load much bigger ship. And the city of Rochefort had been built as a big navy port from, I think, Louis XV. So it became like a Royal Navy, base. And so we actually realized, okay, from Cognac we can, connect all the small plantations and the small production, and from there we can initiate the long logistic routes from Cognac to Rochefort, and from Rochefort all around the world. Yeah. And so this is why from beginning of the 20th century we call the Dutch invented in La Rochelle brandewijn, converted into British brandy, it became the French cognac.
Yep. Yep.
So back to your question, I think what is important into Godet is that longevity, that family ownership, and also the fact that right now we are the last cognac producer based in La Rochelle. And so for us, La Rochelle is of course our homeland. We arrived from Netherlands and established in La Rochelle. And right now, still today, I live in La Rochelle, so 400 something years after Bonaventure. But from the drinker standpoint, what is really unique in La Rochelle is because we are so close to the sea, we have like a third layer of terroir where we have very high humidity, we have very mild winter and mild summer. So the Atlantic Ocean acts as a tempering element. And so we have cognacs which are always very round, very supple, and we think it comes from the fact that we have humid cellars and we have very small variations in between the seasons. So that La Rochelle for us is very important. And I can think of two other reasons why Godet holds a very specific, unique territory within the galaxy of cognac. One of those reasons is, given our longevity, we have an outlook on cognac. We know all the different terroirs. We know the different grape varieties. We know the different distillation techniques. And we have a brand platform, a brand proposition to the consumer, which really gives the consumer the ability to explore what is really cognac. Because the reality of cognac right now, the proposition, what is accessible to many drinkers around the world is only few brands which hold, have the same platform, VS, VSOP, XO, Extra, and something else, Louis XIII, Paradis, all of those things, which is all from the blended different cognacs. That's interesting, but that's not all the reality of cognac. Cognac is a lot broader than this. And us, we take a strong stance at having all those expressions of cognac still produced, still brought to the consumer. And whenever we have someone who really wants to understand what is cognac, he can come to us and wander around what are the different terroirs in cognac. If you move from Grand Champagne to Fin Bois, those are two different cognacs. If you drink a cognac from Uni Blanc, which is 99% of the production currently, and you drink a Folle Blanche, for example, which is one of our specificity, you have two different cognacs. If you go from a cognac which is a blend from, 30 different cognacs, which is 30 years old, for example, like the Exoter, or if you drink a vintage from 1970 or 1980, that's two different cognacs. That's what we are really trying to offer the consumer. And
so if I'm going to visit you, so we can taste the different styles of cognacs.
Definitely. So they are. Our philosophy is that each lot of cognac has its own identity, and our duty, our know-how, our job, our maybe art, is really to take those unique lots, bring them to maturity, and then decide, okay, am I going to express one terroir itself? I'm going to have 100% Borderie, 100% Grand Champagne. Am I going to express a grape, 100% Folle Blanche, 100% Colombard? Or am I going to blend different terroirs together to offer a blended cognac, which is the core offering, of course, of cognac, which is the promise that today you buy Exofin Champagne from Cognac Godet. It should taste the same like Exofin Champagne from Godet from 50 years ago. And it should taste the same of the Exofin Champagne from Godet that my own children, I have Rita, Noor and Madeleine, will produce in 20 years' time. So that's the idea. So really one barrel, one lot, and we really, bring it up to maturity.
It's very interesting. So I say to the people, let's visit Godet in France.
In La Rochelle.
In La Rochelle. The world is opening now, so...
Definitely, yeah.
I think it was a very nice interview with you. Many thanks. And I will say to the people, bedankt voor het kijken en ayush. En santé.
Santé. Longue vie au cognac, longue vie à la Hollande et longue vie à la France.